Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for the Week 1 NFL slate. We're going to be discussing props that I like for Sunday, so this is going to be for the full Sunday slate, all the games on Sunday. I already made a video for Thursday Night Football, and I already did a video for the Friday night game, but now we've got the full slate of games on Sunday, and I've got 4 props that we're going to talk about over on Prizepicks that I do like for this Sunday slate. Now, before we talk through these 4 plays, guys, as always, if you enjoy these Prizepicks videos, if they do help you out, make sure to hit that like button down below and hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And also, if you guys are new to Prizepicks and if you don't have an account over on Prizepicks, be sure to sign up and use promo code NOAH when you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and place your first lineup. Whether you win or lose that lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds added to your account. So you sign up, make a deposit, deposit however much you want, 10, 50, whatever, just deposit $10. You put in a $5 lineup. Even if you win or lose that $5 lineup, you'll get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account that you can then use towards additional lineups. So make sure you guys sign up for Prizepicks, and again, use that promo code NOAH. I do want to say that Prizepicks does have a free square for NFL Week 1. This is available until Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time when the Bears and Titans game starts. You can get Caleb Williams pass yards at 0.5, and this is a free pick Prizepicks is giving you, and they're actually giving you this for every week of the NFL season, weeks 1 through 4. So in the month of September, first 4 weeks of the NFL season, you're going to see a free square on Prizepicks. This is for week 1, and they'll have another free square for week 2, another one for week 3, and then another one for week 4. So very cool promo that Prizepicks is running, giving out a free square every week, weeks 1 through 4 of the NFL season. That's just another incentive to sign up for Prizepicks right now, guys. And again, if you don't have a account, use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up to get those $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account once you place your first lineup. But yeah, we got 4 props to talk about for the Week 1 slate, guys. So far in the NFL season, we got a win for Thursday Night Football. We hit both the plays for Thursday Night Football. Friday night, that game was a disaster. I didn't hit both of my plays then. I actually went 0-2 on the 2 picks I gave out Friday. We needed 2 more fantasy points from Jalen Hurts. He had a chance to go over. The Eagles got down to the goal line late in the game. They had a chance to get a touchdown on a tush push. They actually lined up in the tush push formation. Thought Hurts was about to get a rushing touchdown, but then he fumbled the snap, and he didn't get the touchdown there. Didn't go over his fantasy points, and then we needed 2 more fantasy points, or we needed Josh Jacobs to get into the end zone. I also played his over fantasy points on Patreon. He didn't hit either one of those, didn't get into the end zone, didn't go over his fantasy points, but he got a huge workload. That's kind of what I was betting on, just couldn't find the end zone. It is what it is. We move on to the Sunday slate, guys. I got 4 props to talk about for Sunday that I'm liking. So the first prop that we're going to take a look at is actually going to be a completion percentage prop. So I don't know if any other DFS sites or sportsbooks offer this, but on Prizepicks, you can actually take more or less on a player's completion percentage. And the one that I'm looking at that I like here, they actually have Joe Burrow's completion percentage set at 69.1%. And I like the under here, so less than a 69.1% completion percentage for Joe Burrow this week. And let's talk through this prop and why I like this one, because this is obviously a very unique prop. So Joe Burrow, if you look at his game log last season, he went under this completion percentage line in 7 out of 10 games last season. One of the games where he went over was against Arizona, who allowed the second highest completion percentage to quarterbacks last season. So, one of the games he went over was a really good matchup, and then he did go over against the 49ers, went over against Buffalo. But all other 7 games last season, he had below a 69% completion percentage. And if you look at his game log to start the season, Burrow did kind of start off the season pretty rusty. First game of the season, only completed 45% of his passes, and then 65%, 53%, 66%. So he went under this line in all 4 of his first 4 games to start the season last season. And maybe, with it being the beginning of the season, maybe quarterbacks come out a little bit rusty. Maybe they're not as accurate. Maybe they're not completing as many passes. That could be why Burrow went under to start in first 4 games to start the season last season. But I like this under for one. The matchup here against the Patriots, not the easiest. Patriots have historically been a pretty good defensive team. Last season, the Patriots gave up in terms of completion percentage, they gave up just a 64.3% completion percentage last season, which did rank 20th. So that was below what the league average is. And then if you think about the injuries on the Bengals side, so the Bengals are going to be without T. Higgins. He's listed as doubtful for this week, and Jamar Chase is questionable. I think Jamar Chase probably plays, but it looks like T. Higgins is not going to play. Burrow potentially could be. He's going to be without one of his top 2 receivers, potentially could be without both of his top 2 receivers. So there's definitely going to be probably some maybe connection issues with some of these backup wide receivers that they're going to be having to throw out there. I think we could see some drop passes from the Bengals here, with Burrow not playing with one of his top 2 wide receivers, potentially maybe not having both of his top 2 wide receivers. Again, I think Jamar Chase probably does play, but there's a lot of reasons that I like this under. And if you look at Joe Burrow's stats throughout his career, he's historically been a quarterback that has had below a 69% completion percentage. In his rookie season, he had a 65.3% completion percentage, so under this line. In 2021, he did have a 70.4% completion percentage, so just barely over. But then the last 2 seasons, 68.3%, 66.8%. So 3 out of his 4 seasons of his career, he's had a below a 69.1% completion percentage. Went under this line in 7 out of 10 games last season. Not a great matchup here against the Patriots, and now you've got one of, if not both, of the Bengals' top 2 wide receivers potentially missing this game. So there's a lot of reasons that I like this under on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, if you look at his props for this week, his pass attempts and his pass completions, he's got a 34 pass attempts line. He's got a 23.5 completions line. If he completes 23 out of 34 passes, that would put him under this completion percentage. If he completes 24 out of 34 passes, that puts him just barely over. But I think there's definitely a chance that you do see, again, some drop passes this week. Maybe the communication's not there with Burrow having to play with some of his not normal starting wide receivers. Again, T. Higgins doubtful, Jamar Chase questionable. I think this could be a spot where Joe Burrow maybe struggles a little bit with his efficiency. Maybe the Bengals struggle to move the ball down the field. Again, I think you're going to see some incomplete passes, potentially some drop passes too. So I like this under 69.1% completion percentage for Joe Burrow. That's going to be our first prop for Sunday. And then the next prop that I like is a targets prop. So on Prizepicks, you can take whether you think a player is going to have more or less than a certain number of targets. And they actually have Deontay Johnson's targets prop set at 6.5. And I like the over here, so more than 6.5 targets for Deontay Johnson. So Deontay Johnson, obviously on a new team on the Panthers this season, and he should be in line to see a pretty big role in terms of volume, because if you just look at the rest of the Panthers wide receivers and just their pass catchers overall, this is not a team that has a bunch of talent at the wide receiver position. Now, they did draft Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. We'll see, what kind of season he has, if he's going to be a good rookie or not. They still have Adam Thielen, who's definitely at the end of his career. And then in terms of the tight end position, I think they're going to be missing some of their tight ends this week. Jatavion Sanders, I think, is expected to be their starting tight end, rookie out of Texas. So we should expect a pretty big role here for Deontay Johnson in terms of volume, just with how thin this wide receiver core is for Carolina. Yeah, the tight end position, Carolina's going to be without Ian Thomas. They're going to be without Tommy Tremble. And then at the wide receiver position, you should have Deontay Johnson probably leading this team in targets most week, followed by Xavier Legette, followed by Adam Thielen, and then you got like Jonathan Mingo. But there's not a ton of talent at the wide receiver position with this Carolina team. Deontay Johnson, they brought him in to try and provide some talent to that position. And I think there's going to be a big role here in store for Deontay Johnson. Volume should be there. The Carolina Panthers are a very bad team, so they're going to be playing from behind a lot of weeks. This week on the road against the Saints, they're 4-point underdogs. So this does project to be a game script where potentially the Panthers could be playing from behind. And if they're playing from behind, you're definitely going to see plenty of dropbacks for Bryce Young, plenty of pass attempts. You can just look at Bryce Young's pass attempts prop this week. It's set at 31. I think if Bryce Young attempts 31 passes, if he throws 31 passes, there's a very good chance 7 of those 31 passes go to Deontay Johnson. So I do like Deontay Johnson to have more than 6.5 targets here. There was a couple props I was looking at for Deontay Johnson. Another one that I liked was more than 4.5 receptions. I could definitely see just a lot of short, quick routes just to try and get Bryce Young some completions, to try and get the ball out of his hands quickly. I don't know how many deep routes Deontay Johnson's really going to be running in this offense. I think you might see Xavier Legette running more of those deep routes, whereas Deontay Johnson, they'll probably use more shorter for those quick routes. So I don't even mind taking more than 4.5 receptions. But again, first game of the season, maybe teams aren't as efficient passing the ball, which is kind of one of the reasons I like that under on Burrow's completion percentage. But when we're taking targets here, we're not betting on efficiency, we're betting on volume, and that's what I think Deontay Johnson should be in line to get on this Panthers team. So I like him for more than 6.5 targets here. And then the next 2 props that I like are going to be fantasy score props. Now, these props are actually going to be correlated. So we're going to take a combo prop here, a quarterback and a wide receiver, and we're going to take Matthew Stafford for more than 18 fantasy score, and we're going to pair that with Puka Nacua for more than 15.5 fantasy score. Now, Prizepicks, they have kind of nerfed correlation. Like you can't just stack up quarterbacks and wide receivers and get a normal payout, because typically when you do that, it does lower the payout. But for these two props, when you just play these two individually with no other props from the same game or no other stacks, you still do get a 10x payout for going 4 out of 4, which is what you would normally get. So we're not really getting any correlation nerf here with our payout, stacking these two guys together. And let's talk through why I like this stack with Stafford and Nacua. So first off, this is a game that does project to be high scoring. This Rams-Lions game on Sunday night actually has the highest total of all the week 1 games, 52.5 total. It's pretty rare to see an NFL game have a total over 50, but we got a 52.5 total here between the Rams and the Lions. And we also got a close spread, 4.5 point spread. So obviously this game projects to be competitive. Matthew Stafford going to be going back to Detroit to face his former team. And this game's going to be played in Detroit, so it's in a dome. And typically, dome games do wind up being higher scoring just because when you play in a dome, you don't have to worry about weather. You don't have to worry about rain, wind, any of that stuff. You can just look at, past like back in 2015, 2016 when Drew Brees was on the Saints. I mean, the Saints games used to always be so high scoring because of playing in the dome. You can look at last season on the Lions. I mean, they had so many high scoring games at home. I think this is definitely going to be a higher scoring game, and obviously Vegas agrees with that, putting the total at 52.5. So we got a lot of points projected to be scored in this game. Stafford last season was pretty good to end the season. Now, he didn't start off the season very well. He went under this line in a large majority of games to start the season last year, but he finished the season really well, went over this fantasy score line in 5 out of his last 6 games to finish the season last season. And if we take a look at Stafford's projections for this game, I mean, the books are expecting some big numbers for Matthew Stafford here. He's got a 275.5 pass yard lines, so he's basically projected for about 11 fantasy points just from pass yards alone. And then you got to think about touchdowns. Stafford is favored for over 1.5 touchdowns. So if he throws for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns, well, that's going to put him at 19 fantasy points. Now, sure, he could maybe lose points for fumbles. He could maybe lose points for interceptions. But 275 and 2 would put him at 19 fantasy points and over this line. And that's basically what he's projected for, because he has a 275.5 pass yards line, and he's favored for over 1.5 touchdowns. And if we do look at last season, Stafford only threw 2 touchdowns in 6 games last season. But in those 6 games, he did go over this fantasy score line in 5 out of 6. So typically, when Stafford throws 2 or more touchdowns, you can bet on him also getting more than 18 fantasy points, which again, he did in 5 out of 6 games last season, throwing 2 or more touchdowns. I think the matchup here against the Lions is also pretty favorable. I mean, the Lions defense was definitely beatable through the air. Again, the Lions, in terms of their stadium, like their stadium plays is like a very high scoring stadium. I mean, you can look at all the games last year in the Ford Field, in the Lions Stadium, and there was a lot of high scoring games there. And it's just because of the dome. I mean, the dome plays very well for scoring in the NFL. You see a lot more high scoring games be played indoors than outdoors, because obviously you don't have to worry about weather. Like, just looking at last season versus quarterbacks, I think the Lions gave up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. So really like the spot for Matthew Stafford in a little bit of a revenge game. If you want to factor that in or not, I don't care. But either way, I think it's a good spot for Stafford. Like him to go over 18 fantasy points, and I like pairing that with Puka Nacua for more than 15.5 fantasy points. If Stafford goes over this fantasy score line, there's a very good chance either one of Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp are going over those fantasy score lines, maybe both of them. I'm going to bet on Puka here, though. I like the spot a lot for Puka. I think Puka's a guy that's definitely in line for kind of a big breakout year. Now, sure, he's still going to be competing with Cooper Kupp for targets, but Puka has shown the ability to put up big numbers, even playing alongside Cooper Kupp. Now, there was a stretch of games last season when Cooper Kupp was out and Puka Nacua was going absolutely berserk. So obviously Puka, he put up really big numbers without Cooper Kupp last season. But even when Cooper Kupp was healthy, you still saw Puka putting up big games. Puka finished the season really well. Like, you can look at his fantasy score games to finish the season. Had 23.9 against Cleveland, had 33 against the Saints, 18.7 against the Giants. So he finished the season really well, had over 100 receiving yards in 3 out of his last 6 games to finish the season last season. He's projected for some big numbers this week. I mean, 72.5 receiving yards line, 6 receptions line. So that alone gives him 13.5 fantasy points, and that's without factoring in potential for touchdowns. I mean, Puka Nacua is definitely a guy that can get it to the end zone. I want to say last season he scored like 6 or 7 touchdowns, I believe. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 touchdowns last season. So Puka's always got a chance at getting to the end zone. But at this 15.5 fantasy score line, it's not like we need him to get into the end zone to go over this line. He could have 7 catches for 85 yards, and that would put him at 15.5 fantasy score, which definitely feels more than doable here. He could have, maybe he doesn't get as many yards, but maybe he racks up a lot of receptions. Remember, Prizepicks, their fantasy score, it's full point PPR, so every reception really starts to add up. Let's say Puka gets 8 or 9 receptions, and that's going to be 8 or 9 points just right there, and then you got to add in what he gets for yards. But I definitely like Puka to go over this 15.5 fantasy score line. It does correlate well with the Matthew Stafford play. And I was looking at some projections kind of around the industry. The DFS projections that I look at actually have Puka projected 3 points higher than what Prizepicks does. Their projections have Puka at 18.5 fantasy points. So I like comparing projections kind of around the industry, comparing those back to Prizepicks. And if I can find some lines with some big differentials, those are usually ones I like to take. Puka's projected a lot higher kind of around the industry than what Prizepicks has. So that's what I'm going to roll with. As our fourth and final play for Sunday, we're going to pair Matthew Stafford over 18 fantasy score with Puka Nacua over 15.5 fantasy score. So this is what I'm liking for Sunday, guys. For the full slate of games, we're taking 4 props here. Joe Burrow, less than 69.1% completion percentage. Deontay Johnson, more than 6.5 targets. And then a quarterback wide receiver stack of Matthew Stafford, more than 18 fantasy score, and Puka Nacua, more than 15.5 fantasy score. So we're going to roll with, guys. 4 plays for Sunday. If you guys are tailing me here, hopefully we can hit all 4 of these plays, make some money. If you guys do want to play these all 4 in one lineup and do it as a 4-pick power, that's totally up to you. Obviously, that's a little bit riskier because if you miss one play, you don't get anything. You can do the flex play, but I think the power play is probably the better play to do, in terms of EV. But if you want to, mix these up, like if you want to run a 2-pick entry with maybe Burrow and Stafford or Deontay and Puka, you can. But I think I would want to play Puka and Stafford together since there's that correlation with those two. But it's up to you how to use these 4 picks. But these are 4 picks that I do like for Sunday, guys. Good luck if you're tailing. Let's make some money here. Appreciate you guys watching, though. As always, make sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And again, guys, go check out Prizepicks. And if you don't have an account over on Prizepicks, be sure to sign up. Use that promo code NOAH. Place your first lineup. You get $50 in promo funds instantly added to your account when you sign up and use code NOAH. But yeah, good luck this week, guys. Thanks for watching, as always. See you guys in the next video.